Hey everyone, you're listening to Dirt Grow Podcast with your host, David Burma. All right, super excited here to have a new fella from the local area that's representing a lot of farmers in the local area and talk a lot about, what's going on in farming and right now and what he's preparing for 2024. So this is Dirt Grow Podcast, and we're super excited to hear from a crop consultant here locally. His name is Ryan Benjamin, and it's going to be interesting because I don't know a lot about you, Ryan. And it's going to be exciting because, I get to know about you, and I get to know a little bit about farming and the things to watch out for this year. So, Ryan, a little bit of background. So, were you raised on a farm, or what's your background?
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me, David. It's great to be here and share a little bit about myself and some of the seasonal things that we might look at in 2024. So I grew up on a farm. It was a smaller farm. Like early youth, I was up in Huron County. And then grade 8, roughly, my parents moved to Forest area, or west of Forest, so in Lambton County. And then I went to the University of Guelph. I was interested in ag. My parents had a finishing hog operation and only 200 acres, so kind of a smaller farm. I was interested in ag. I knew my parents couldn't really take me on right after university. The pig business wasn't great, and they weren't growing land base with only 200 acres. So they actually sold the farm about the time I graduated. But I always had a passion for the crops side of things, and so I took agronomy as my major at the University of Guelph. So
cool.
My summer jobs through university, I worked for Cargill crop scouting, and that kind of got me into the ag business side of things. And more or less, after that, did some consulting with them. So I graduated in 2009 and consulted with them for a few years, and then I worked for a large farm operation for 1 year near Sarnia. Yeah. And then it was just over 10 years ago I decided to go independently as a consultant.
Wow, it's been 10 years, eh?
Yeah, it's been time flies. Yeah.
Wow. So Cargill does a really good job at training people. They brought good salespeople, good good in every area. They had a struggle maintaining those people, but they definitely done an amazing job training people, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a challenge today, I think, huge in the industry is that training that next generation. Mm-hmm. It's even something I have on my mind occasionally is I don't currently have employees. I don't have summer students or crop scouts like I did when I was at Cargill. But, who am I going to pass on my knowledge to? Maybe it will be my kids someday, but
sure. Yeah.
So
no, and there's a thing about going to school, and there's another thing about getting hands-on, right? And there's two different things, right? So having that diversification is very, very important, but very difficult sometimes.
Yep.
To get that true hands-on, right? I actually had a friend on earlier, and he said the biggest thing that he recommended young people do is build confidence. And sometimes that's hard to do, right?
Oh,
you don't know where you're going to get it from, where you need to go to work, to build that confidence, right? Because you got a little bit of education, you went to go work for a good retailer, trained you well, then you went to big producer, crop farmer, and got the hands-on experience there, right? So you got, levels of experience, and it made you perfect for the, for what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Right.
So cool. So you're independent, right?
Correct.
Consultant. So that means like that, because some people say they're independent, but they still kind of work for somebody. But you don't. There's no cash back for you.
There's zero cash back for me. Yeah. I don't do anything else on the side either. Right. Like I don't sell seed.
Right.
I'm not wheeling the chemical for a retailer anywhere. Right. No kickbacks for anything.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the two kind of means, right? One is kind of a crop consultant that's selling stuff, right?
Yep.
And there's the other crop consultant that is totally independent, right?
Yep.
And both have their purpose, right? I think a little bit.
For sure.
But there isn't a lot of independent crop consultants. We were just talking about that. I think there's 3 in southwestern Ontario, down below London and so forth. And we run with a crop consultant ourselves, totally independent. And I think the market's around $10 an acre for the consulting work approximately. And we're thinking about that, like, it doesn't take much to make a mistake as a farmer nowadays and blow away $10.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right? Like you could make some simple mistake, and then all the savings too, like packaging even herbicides, like knowing how to package this with this with this with this, and there's the different package deals that will change your rebates and your costs and all that kind of stuff too, right? Like
yeah.
So I think that's a huge thing. And then quite frankly, it's kind of funny because I do all the look after the purchasing of herbicide.
Yep.
I used to up till this year. I don't know if I'm going to do next year, but to this day, I do not know what herbicide goes with what herbicide and why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
We run.
You just follow the list.
We run 5,000 acres, and whatever a crop consultant says, we do. And so he's kind of a bit of a gatekeeper.
Yep.
Right. And so if somebody wants to sell us something, we just go talk to him.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And if he passes him, then we're good to talk. Right.
Okay.
And so it kind of gives that little buffer. So it's been super, super helpful, and I think every year he's well paid for himself. So it's probably one of our best investments, honestly.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah.
So, so you go work independently. How long did it take for you to get to the point when you said that's enough customers? How many years was that?
Yeah. So I've been doing this just over 10 years. I would say about year 4, roughly.
Yeah. And you couldn't take on anymore.
I couldn't take on anymore.
Yeah. So that's, if any of you young people out there are super eager and excited about learning about crops and building a business or whatever, I think there's a lot of space there.
Oh, there is. Yeah.
For that spot.
Yeah. Well, as someone even local, like you mentioned, you're working with another consultant. We're somewhat in the same area, but we are not competitors with one another, right? There's lots of business. I mentioned to you earlier, like I could double if I wanted to. There's lots of room for growth, for sure.
Yeah, I think he's not taking on a client in 10 years.
Yeah.
So no, we're very.
There's even lots of growth within. Even I would look at my current client base, areas I could grow with them alone. Right, there's always opportunity to grow,
scale up the service,
a bit. Yep.
Yeah.
So
I definitely could see that. So we're 2023. We're changing. 2023 is done. We're 2024. Tides are a little changing out there, eh?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Commodity prices are down.
Yep.
Yields up across the world. We don't have any. We have a lot of carryover, it seems like, in the marketplace. There's not a lot of excitement in the grain market. We're kind of recession type times right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's changing, farmers' forecast.
Yep.
And what their expectations are, or how they changing
for 2024 for sure. Yeah, I've had a few phone calls about even just how much corn they're going to grow in this coming year.
Right.
With the markets being down, so.
And just because there's more margin in the beans don't move quite as low as like it was. Is that what's the motivation for switching from corn to maybe to beans?
Yeah, maybe fewer inputs for sure.
Okay.
Maybe the markets aren't down as much. Right. There's also more interest in growing IP soybeans with premium. That's keeping that price pretty good. So, yeah.
No, we're all IPs, and definitely it's been a good role. Canola. I had a chat with our crop consultant, canola.
Yep.
What's your opinion? Do you have any customers that are?
I don't have any. I've had some interest specifically this fall, and I think Chad probably shared that on the podcast. You got to order the seed early, like way back in May or June, right? Because it comes from the UK, I believe.
May or June of what year?
Of the year you're going to plant it. You're going to plant it in the fall, like late August, early September.
Okay.
So, some clients reached out to me in about August saying, I might do this in a few weeks. And I was like, I don't think you are, because you're not going to get seed. Right. And then we just had a challenging planting season that kept them out as well. It just kept raining. And even the people that were committed, their crops struggled to get in, and the establishment doesn't look too good right now. So.
Right. And you got to make sure you watch your herbicide. Is that correct?
Yes.
On the canola?
Yeah. Yep.
So what's the, like, 2024 is coming in here, and what are you thinking? Like, what are you going to say, hey, farmers, these are the things you want to watch out for 2024? What are you looking at?
Yeah. I guess somewhat back to the lower grain prices. I wouldn't, quickly pull back on a lot of management decisions. It's not like we're going to cut our nitrogen rates in half and spend half the amount on inputs. We're not. Even some things that we do have to keep an eye on, one being tar spot in corn. So if we're still growing corn and we have a wet year where that tar spot comes in relatively early, like I don't think it's a year to pull back on fungicide use in corn.
Was there quite a bit of tar spot last year? Or is that something everybody's we sprayed all of our fields. So
in even sprayed fields you would find some tar spot in for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
So
when we typically don't spray all our fields.
Okay.
So that was a new year for us to spray everything. I think the year before, maybe possibly two, but our crop consultant told us to for that reason.
Yeah, that's why I predict fungicide use in corn to be somewhat flat, maybe even up a little bit, even though the markets are down.
Right.
So
right. And what else? What else you watch for?
There's been a little bit of a trend of more E3 or Enlist soybeans on the market.
Versus what?
Versus like we're talking in the crusher world.
Yep.
So versus Roundup Ready Extends.
Okay.
So there's some people moving. So Roundup Ready Extends, they're resistant to glyphosate and dicamba.
Dicamba, right.
So there's some moving from the dicamba system to an 2,4-D choline system as the Enlist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why?
Somewhat to do with I would say off-target movement of dicamba.
Okay. Is there less with 2,4-D? Is that why?
It's less volatile for sure.
Okay.
Some of the other reasons might just be some seed companies, that's just the direction they want to go rather than purchasing the traits from Bayer. So there's some of that too. So
yeah. It's always a little politics or sometimes behind it all, right? Yeah. So then what about any weed species that are becoming a threat, or what do you find?
Yeah,
there?
so that's another maybe reason why some growers are going to Enlist is glyphosate resistant water hemp. Is growing slowly. It doesn't spread like Canada fleabane in terms of blowing hundreds of miles or kilometers with wind.
Right.
The seed is more moved physically by equipment being number one. Some through wildlife or birds, but I haven't seen too many examples of that. It's mainly been equipment or just simply someone picks up a new farm and they didn't realize that weed was on that farm that they picked up.
Interesting.
So whether it was bought or rented or whatever.
Yeah, we forget about that part, right?
Yeah,
we might be clean and then we kind of screwed ourselves.
Yeah.
to make
it was an expensive farm purchase.
Or rented. You rented a farm and you're saving. You hope to make $2,000 after you're all said and done renting one piece, right? And then you're dealing with that afterwards. Yeah, that's a thought I never thought about. Yeah. So what else? What else you got? People got to work on. Think about where are they going to save money. I know like 28%. Like I had a whole bunch bought, and I bought more than I needed, so I sold it off. Rallied a little bit, sold it off because I'm just not betting that 28% is going up. Like I don't know where it's at now, but
I'm not a betting man. So
yeah. But yeah, I mean, 28% is way down from last year.
Oh yeah, big time.
So and I've heard that natural gas is cheap out there, and there's lots of it and that kind of stuff. So it'd be just the fact that I don't know why. I mean, why does 28% always go up with corn prices? That's what I don't get.
Yeah.
It's never about natural gas going up and down. It's about corn prices, and it seems like it follows it and it just doesn't make sense. So what else? Where else farmer going to save some money?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to pick. Maybe it's just spending your dollars wisely, right?
Maybe machinery.
Doing a good back to the consulting role, but even just the attention to detail, whether you're using a consultant or not, right? Fine tuning nitrogen rate, not pulling nitrogen back, but across the board, but just being smart with it. Taking into account your organic N contributions or red clover, alfalfa plowdown credits. Right. Just being, fine tuning it by field or even more specifically within a field. If you can do that with site specific sampling or GIS stuff, whatever, to maybe create some variable rate nitrogen scripts or something.
Sure.
And just being smarter with the inputs that we're right now blanket applying. So
I think a lot of farmers have probably overspent on equipment over the years too. You know?
Yeah, there was some big investments. Yeah. Hopefully, get them through the tough times. Too,
right.
So,
to be definitely less spending on equipment.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I know we are.
Yeah,
we took all of our new pickup trucks because you were flipping them out for no cost for a while, right? You know, you just keep on flipping them and said, no, we're selling them all now. We're buying, $10,000 2-wheel drive pickup trucks back to 2-wheel drive. Like, why are you going to pay 7% interest on $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 pickup trucks, right? Doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So that's also changed. And I was talking about the other day on talking about the markets and that's something I got to be totally aware on is that, 7% interest. And when you see the markets not really moving much, grain markets, up and down and that kind of stuff, it's like holding much after harvest I don't know. I'm just thinking that doesn't make a lot of sense to hold it much past harvest. If you don't see that, there's some big swing, have a lot of that sold by harvest time. One guy said the most expensive thing he had this year was owning a bin.
Oh yeah.
Right, because he was holding his grain.
Yep.
Right, and he was holding his grain. He's lost like $1 a bushel.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
by holding his grain. It's so true, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't.
Yeah, I never thought that you need more carry in the market. To cover that interest.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, it was going in the negative way, right? So he put this grain, didn't think the price was good, put the grain in the bin, and then now it's gone the other way. So his interest and the price is going down, and he has a bin. Well, just cut your losses, sometimes. Yeah. But anyways, I think that's something to be aware of. Making sure you market it soon, market fast, and you got 7% interest. So getting that money back in the bank and paying down loans, will be important. So, farming, it's really hard in farming to find this, big wow in farming. As far as where's your next, grain that's going to get you an extra $100 or $200 an acre.
Yeah.
Isn't it hard? Like,
oh yeah,
to find that next win. Like I always say that. Like I was looking at canola and it seemed like canola was a good fit. And I don't know where canola price is going to go, but it's really hard to find. Like always, people are working on a bushel or two on anything. Maybe not with corn, but like on beans, just get another bushel or get another 2 bushel. Like, is there something along the lines where people are going to find some home run that you could think of that is it watching your varieties? Is it how do people choose what varieties they choose on corn and that kind of stuff? How are you suggesting it for farmers? What are the farmers looking at? They're looking at government trials, they're listening to their salesmen. How do they figure that stuff out?
Yeah, I would say in the last number of years there's a lot more grain scales carts out there. A lot of farmers are doing their own side-by-side comparisons, weighing them off. Yeah. Sometimes that's reported back to the seed dealer, but not always.
No, sure.
We have to be a little careful with yield monitor data for comparing varieties or hybrids against each other. But having scales on grain carts is a big one.
Are the farmers kind of getting that help by you?
To
having
select?
Kinda.
I have some clients that do certainly reach out and they're like, okay, Ryan, you see a lot of different acres, a lot of different products. What are you seeing?
Right.
Yeah.
So you help guys with their corn seed selection, that kind of stuff?
A little bit of that. Yeah,
right.
For sure. And also just having, I think there's a lot of value in local data, even from seed dealers, right? Yep. Yeah. There's a number of seed dealers that do a pile of way off still in Lambton County for sure. So.
Right. So when it comes to you got the corn and finding that advantage, but we've always struggled with Brutons and finding a variety of Roundups that out yield them on IPs. Are you finding a Roundup variety or a list of variety or any of those kind of varieties that are substantially out yielding that bean in our area?
I would say the Brutons do really well on clay.
Yeah.
If you get onto some very choice land, which I tend to find more in the north half of Lambton.
Okay.
Then the Brutons can fail. They can lodge quickly. Not that they'll be way behind, but just on that choice land, they could all of a sudden be back 8 bushel, something like that on really good land. So
clay ground, because that's all we run.
Yeah.
Well, there's maybe a couple of fields that are in that, but on heavy clay ground, are you finding anything that's substantially better than the Brutons on clay ground? Because the reason why I'm asking is we've always
Yep.
Think
You're
about
wondering
switching, and
what
it's like,
switching about
yeah,
switching.
and
Yep.
wondering if there's anything else that's, substantially making a difference in there in that Roundup Ready list
Yeah.
products.
I would say you have a lot more. You have a lot more options, but they aren't all way better
Right.
on clay. No. I had one grower, a few growers compare Brutons versus some top selling Roundup Readies in the market this
Did they?
year.
Okay.
Yep. So, it came back to on the clay, Brutons were back maybe a bushel or two.
Oh, really? That's
And
it.
then on loam soil, that's where
That's
that
right.
kind of 8 bushel number came
Okay.
from. Was really good, high fertility land, loam, and the Brutons were going down. They started lodging.
Yep.
So.
It's so hard to do comparisons, right?
Oh yeah.
With those, because you have an IP
Oh, it was.
and then a
It was-
Roundup.
Yep. Yeah, and you got to figure out spray. Are you just going to spray it all conventionally,
Yeah.
or are you going to spray them separately? Harvest, planting, everything. You got to watch contamination.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Huh. Interesting. So the IP market's a good market. Wheat's a struggle, right? Economics.
Yep.
Wheat,
Yep.
it's a bit of a struggle
Kind of always are. It's the rotation crop for a lot of growers. Yeah.
on the heavy clay.
Yep.
Yeah, we're still there too.
Yeah.
On nicer soil, you kind of get away with not having as much rotation,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And the canola works more for the clay, not for the loam as much either, for that same reason, because you have to have wheat in the rotation for canola.
Yep.
Yeah, if you don't have the wheat in the rotation.
Yep. To plant it early.
Yeah,
Yep.
plant early. So basically, you break it down. What about fertility? Let's talk about fertility for a moment. I'm a farmer, and I soil sample, and I come into, I don't know, pick a number, 10 parts per million in phosphorus, right? I come
Yep.
into 75 parts per million in potash, right?
Yep.
On the low side.
Yep.
What do I do?
Hmm.
I own the field. What do I do? Do I maintain? Do I feed the seed?
One, I would say you got to start with really low levels. You got to start banding some nutrients somehow,
Okay.
and then work at a build, right? So whether it be if you can afford a pile of dry fertilizer, but there's other ways to build
Sure.
with some of your products
Sure,
and,
manure
and
or
other
whatever.
manure or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No,
Build-
if you own
build-
the farm,
build a-
you got to
build a-
start building, but it's hard to build.
I know.
You start looking at 200 bushel corn, 60 bushel soybeans, 110 bushel wheat. Start removing for nutrients. It's a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
So, do you sit down with farmers and start breaking those numbers down? And
Oh, yeah.
and
Yep.
look what that's going to cost them to get there. And
Yep.
there is it's an interesting number, because there is a spot where there is an economical gain. Like if you own that farm long enough, I think it's rewarding to get
Oh
there.
yeah. There's even research out there that would support pick soybeans.
Yeah.
They don't really respond to fertilizer so much, but they do respond to good soil test levels.
Right.
Well, how do you get good soil test levels without fertilizer? So it's always discussions I have is building for the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the short term, they don't really respond to fertilizer. But
Yeah.
there's return on investment in the big picture in the long term.
Yeah.
If you can build those levels up to at least medium, we're
What
talking
would
20,
you- would you
20
talking?
parts per
Yeah.
million phos and 150 potash, right?
Yeah. You like
Or
150 on
on the
potash?
potassium level.
Yeah, really.
I mean, it's hard to get on lighter land to get that
Sure.
high.
No. That's right.
You
But
know,
on
the
clay,
low CC land,
Yeah.
but on clay, I definitely like the 150. number.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was maybe being a little cheap. I was doing the 120. Yeah. So that's the other struggle, right? Like the whole rental program is such a struggle, right? Because you have these guys that rent their land. They don't know anything about it. It might be some corporation, right, that don't care. So then I watch farmers compete, right, for that
Yep.
land,
Yep.
and it's nutrient poor. It maybe not tiled real well.
Yeah.
And it's such a challenge to, what do you do? Because now it's
Oh,
been
yeah.
mined right out.
Yep.
You're not going to build it.
Yep.
You don't
yep.
have it for 3 years.
Yep.
Yeah. The biggest thing is building those relationships, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think,
Yeah.
because the guys that, any little bit that we rent is basically up till now is basically with farmers that we have relationships with, and
Yep.
they know, and they appreciate the fact that you're going to put the extra fertility down, you're going to maintain the fertility levels, and then they're going to get reasonable rent.
Yep.
Right, and
Yep.
that's the perfect scenario, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're just going to mine it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So otherwise, let's say I'm in a situation where I'm renting the land, right? Let's say it's loamy type of soil, and I'm going to grow mainly corn. So now what am I doing? It's got lower phosphorus, lower potash.
Yep.
I'm renting the field. There's no money set aside. They're saying, hey,
Yep.
we want you to look after the land.
Yep.
Just price is all we're talking about. What am I doing? What's my program?
Yeah. Then you're looking. I would kind of suggest the bare minimum is looking at like OMAF's recommendations for soil based off soil test levels.
Mm-hmm.
It follows the sufficiency approach, right? Your greatest return on investment in 1 year.
So am I banding
nutrients.
it? Am I banding it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
on low soil test levels. Yeah,
Yeah.
banding nutrients.
Am I putting any broadcast, or just put all the band, or what do you
There'll
recommend?
be some broadcasts likely,
Yeah.
especially on potassium, where you got to watch your N plus K in a band. Like, let's say we're dry fertilizer 2x2, we can't put the entire crop's worth of potassium in that band. So
tell me, I'm curious about this, because I want to go down another route, if you don't mind. So low tests, I got to feed the crop. What am I putting down for potassium to feed that crop?
Probably just a ballpark might
Yeah.
be 60 pounds, 100 pounds of muriate of potash. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got 100, so you're going to get about, what's it, 50% of it is potassium?
60. Yep.
60. So you actually 60 actual?
Yep.
60 actual?
Yeah.
And then what about MAP?
If it was banded, roughly 100 pounds of product.
So 100,
MAP.
so 50
Yep.
and
So
60.
52.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't put that much down 2x2,
Not on the. You can on the map. You can.
not
Yep.
the potash.
Yep. Correct. Yep.
Now, if I were to go the season before in strip till,
Yep.
can I
Then
put it
you
all down?
Yep.
Yeah.
We get enough rainfall activity that salt, that potassium chloride salt issue is really non-issue. Yeah.
And would you ramp it up from there, because you are going the and not have to go and broadcast?
Yeah, there's a number of growers that put a lot of their fertility down in a strip. Yeah.
And what would you? And again, same scenario. I don't own the land. I'm renting.
Yeah.
What am I doing now?
Yeah, probably something similar to that.
Still
Yep.
six the same.
Yep.
You're still okay. One
Yep.
way or another, you're still fine.
Yep.
No, I don't need to go and broadcast anything more, like for it to grow that crop.
Like, I guess I don't have those tables right
No,
in
but I'm
front
just
of
like
me,
in
but
general.
ballpark, yeah, in general.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And can I put any more? Can I put any nitrogen down now, or is that maxed out for that band? Or is that
So
enough?
in Lambton, a lot of the strip till growers are.
I'm not talking
only,
2x2 now on loamy soil.
Oh, 2x2 on loamy soil. Yeah, you can put some N down
You
there.
still put some more in.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And this 2x2 now, are we putting? If I'm all dry, let's say I'm doing all dry, obviously, because that'd be a lot of liquid. But I'm all dry. Am I putting anything with the seed then? In this case,
No.
no. All 2x2.
All 2x2.
Interesting.
Yeah. There are a
Interesting.
few growers that would do both liquid in furrow and
Sure.
dry 2x2, but very few. Yeah.
I've
I mean, the idea is that the seed starter would get it started, but it doesn't take that long for the roots to travel
there.
2 inches over.
especially if it's loamier soil, nicer soil. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, what's interesting to me, some good farmers in the neighborhood that do really good research, they're questioning the whole pop up or seed place, like with the seed fertilizer, any 1034 or 624-6, whatever it's called. They're going away from it just because they're finding that time and again, not all the time, but they're finding sometimes that it's creating damage, right? And that they're not getting the what they're getting for benefit quite often is some other places are not, and the economics are not working for them. Have you noticed that? Have you played around with that much and figured that out?
I played around it in the strip till system specifically. So a lot of strip till growers have pulled that liquid in furrow out because they have so much nutrients going down in that band.
But what about
Now
just
they're
regular?
typically putting on more than what we described.
Sure.
They might be putting on 2 years worth of crop removal. just to maintain on an average soil
Sure.
test level, and they own the farm, so they're putting down fertilizer for corn and beans,
Interesting.
all in a strip till. So there's quite a bit of fertilizer there. So those are the growers that are the first ones to pull out that liquid in furrow. Yeah.
And other farmers, you still like you're still pushing the idea that you should?
Typically, I am. Yeah. Outside
yeah.
the banding situation,
You're still
if it's all
encouraging it.
broadcast fertilizer, then I would.
Yeah, especially on clay.
On clay,
Yeah.
There's some
Interesting.
other non-tangibles there as well, like uniformity of the crop or keeping that crop even uniform. I've seen it at tassel time. So now we're trying to spray a fungicide at fresh silk.
Right.
And if we pull that what we call an expensive in-furrow out, well, maybe now we've got corn that's much more variable at our silking time, and we don't do a good job at reducing vomitoxin, right? So there's some other things to keep in mind when you pull that out of the system. So, yeah.
So rental ground, loam soil, you would probably be a dry fertilizer guy at that point in time.
Yep.
If you wanted to put it, there's no like.
Yep.
And you do it either strip till or band 2x2.
Yep.
Interesting. So what do you see? What do you see? This is maybe what do you see with farmers that may be doing things that you say, why are you doing that still the same way? When do you look at that? And you're like, what's happening? Like, do you think of doing something different? Like, this is not making you money. This is costing you. Was there things that you see on a day-to-day basis that you just shake your head?
Not all that often.
No.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would it be? What are you looking at and you're saying, why are you spending your money there? We'll come back to that.
Okay.
So what was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you about soil sampling.
Yep.
So soil sampling, how often?
I'm in that. I start looking for a time to sample it once we reach 3 years.
3 years.
And then picking a time in the rotation that works conveniently. I don't sample a whole lot actually after soybeans anymore because most of the land that I consult on with soybeans, it's either goes to wheat right away, so we'll catch it after wheat, or it's strip tilled or even conventional till that people want to manage it the day the combine's in the field. They want to know what to put on for fertilizer, fall fertilizer, lime, whatever. So I actually do a lot of sampling now after corn so that I know, or ahead of the beans, so that we know for the fall what we're doing.
For the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's just, I don't know.
Do you ever soil sample
Soil
spring?
sampling, I wish there was a way to get results faster. I'm not knocking the labs, but even let's say a week. Not too many farmers want to wait a week after soybean harvest for results.
Well, it all takes time too. You gotta go soil sample, and you're not soil sampling one field. You're probably soil sampling a bunch, and then you're not getting all at once, sending away. So or you may, but it might be like 3 or 4 days later. So I know what you're saying. It takes some time, right?
Yep.
And I've argued this one a little bit. I believe big time in soil sampling. I believe in soil sampling, doing a good job soil sampling, so your data's good.
Yep.
But I question sometimes the 3-year thing and not leave it long, and I'll tell you why. So one time I had our crop consultant is big into soil sampling every 3 years.
Yeah.
And my argument's this: if I didn't do anything super aggressive in changing my fertility, then why am I expecting anything different than last time I done it?
Yeah, there is that. Like, we know ballpark how many pounds of P2O5 or K2O it takes to change a soil test level by even just 1 part per million.
Exactly. So we
can do that math.
So
I would say you could maybe extend that frequency if you have a good benchmark. So I like to have 2, hopefully 3 different soil tests on the same piece of land.
Right.
To kind of see where your trends are going. Are you going up? Are you going down? If you've sampled a farm, let's say you've owned a farm or it's been in your family for 20 years and you've sampled it. I don't know if you've got like 30 years of data. I don't know if that's the farm you need to sample every 3 years. You could maybe extend that closer to 5 years. Sure. So,
and another thing, I made the mistake. So I was sampling once, and I sampled 3 years later, and I went to Chad. I says, our potash ain't moving much, Yeah. And I said, well, what's happening? And so when we went back and looked at it, I said, okay, this pot 70 parts per million, right?
Yep.
Not good.
Yep.
I'm not happy with this.
Yep.
I want it 120. Maybe it should be 150. So I'm at 70. I want to be 120.
Yep.
I said, so let's say I don't do it in 3 years. I do it in 5 years, right? 5 or 6. I said, if I want to consider crop removal, how much do I have to put on? And guess what guess what the number was? Pounds. How many pounds you had to do in 5 or 6 years, moving from 70 parts per million to 120? And you had to consider crop removal. How many pounds do you think you're putting on that acre or whatever?
So you're about 50, 100. Yeah, you're like in the thousands of pounds, like 2,000, 3,000 pounds.
2,000, yeah. So 2,000 pounds. And that blew my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're putting out a ton of potash in this acre,
Yeah,
right? Over a
literally.
5-year period. And so this is what kind of changed my thinking about it. I said, well, if I'm putting down a ton
Yep.
over 5 years, then why am I checking in third year? Like if I really want to be aggressive about this, and I want to do variable rate, and I want to get that 70 up to 120, right? And I want to spend that money, then I better not be checking in 3 years, because I might be just at that point in time probing a pearl of potash. This amount of potash I'm putting out. I got to make that sure that soil gets activated with that potash and mixed in with it, and it's becoming more throughout the whole soil. And then after that 5 or 6 years, then I'm expecting some results. So
now on the flip side, like sometimes I find we aren't putting 2,000 pounds on. We're building slowly. Mm-hmm. And maybe something else might show up if you did sample every 3 years, right? Maybe all of a sudden, I didn't realize my pH, like it was 6.1 last time, but now it's 5.6. Oh, maybe I need to start looking at doing something, right? So
does pH, changing pH, change the other nutrients numbers sometimes, or vice versa, where the phosphorus changes the pH? Have you seen that at all?
It certainly changes like availability of phosphorus, but the actual soil test number, I haven't had much experience to say whether I've seen big swings just from a lime application.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and potash is more economical to help out than phosphorus. I mean, I haven't done the numbers on phosphorus, but it would be fun to move those numbers. And what is it again? 30? Is it 30 pounds is 1 part per million?
Roughly. Yep.
On both potash and phosphorus.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, got back to the thought. Any idea what farmers could do that they may be doing time and time again? They need to stop doing. They doing too much tillage out there? Are they doing too much? Is that working well?
No, I would say oftentimes it's that they, in a way, they're not managing the crop as much as they could. Right. Or
not checking it enough.
Yeah, not checking it enough, or letting a bunch of weeds out in the field rob yield. Right. Yeah. Like the importance of keeping corn and soybeans clean early. Right.
That's new data that came out in the right.
Yeah. Right.
We'll talk about that.
Like assessing your field at harvest time. Yeah. For weed control to say how you did in the season is not. That's not good enough, right? You can have a clean field at harvest, but you left a bunch of bushels on the table because you didn't clean the field up until 8 leaf in corn and just before canopy closure in soybeans, right?
So those numbers have been focused on more the last few years. They've done more research even on soybeans, that finding that there's a substantial yield loss by even just having those little weeds in there. Maybe they don't look like they're affecting the yield, but just the same concept, how the corn recognizes the weed, the soybeans are what recognizes the weeds, and they're changing.
Yep.
So talk about it. Do you know any of those numbers? What the actual difference is when you don't have it clean, even though you might have it clean by fall?
Yeah.
Having beans with
I've learned it's a lot to do with weed density, right? So some of that data that comes out of research might show 10 bushels in beans or 30 bushels in corn, but those are usually under plots that are heavy weed pressure.
Got it.
Right. So that you gotta watch that too.
Yeah. And even though you just need that time period, that early time period is so crucial for that same reason, right? Yeah.
So
no, it's important data.
Back to maybe some management tips for 2024 with the markets being down. I would say growers just have to be careful not to pull back too much on managing the crop. Right. And one kind of highlight in the winter meetings has been this talk on yen in wheat, right? That's the yield enhancement network. and they looked at the top 20% of growers and compared them to the bottom 20% of the growers that enrolled. The top 20, you know, they're spending on average I think it's about $60 an acre more than the bottom 20. But their net is like something like $300 an acre more.
Really?
Right? It just shows how much yield comes into economics, right?
So know your numbers.
So know your numbers. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying pour the kitchen sink at every crop, but if there's a low-hanging fruit that's there, that can raise your yield up 5-10 bushels, right? Or protect that yield potential by 5 or 10 bushels, don't ignore it, right?
Yeah.
So keep fields clean from beginning on. Be in your field to look for pests and manage nutrition the way kind of we have been. Right. More or less stick the course on nutrients. So.
Yeah, it's always I have one. If you're a crappy farmer, you don't do great crops, don't choose to go be organic. That's the rule of thumb I have. It's when you're like an amazing farmer and you're doing everything right and you're bored, then that's when you get an organic.
Okay, yeah,
right? That's the rule I have, because I see sometimes guys are like, oh, I'm not making much money. You know, I'm not doing a good job. They're like, well, organic makes more money. Let's go to organic. I'm like, no, don't. Maybe you should go rent your farm out, you know? So no, I see that once in a while, right? And I think there's lessons to learn from the organic farmers.
Oh yeah,
you know, the good ones, the guys are doing it good because they're not spending the money. They're not buying herbicides. They're not buying the fertilizer, all kind of stuff. But they know what their crop needs, their field needs, each crop and rotation and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, big time. You notice a big difference on rotation. I think being number one differentiator between one organic farm to another.
Right. True. Yeah. They don't do it just because of the numbers.
No.
Not the financial. It's because of knowing the whole details about their crops and that kind of stuff.
And this applies to any farmer, but like the repeated soybeans on soybeans, and it's another watch out for 2024 if corn's down, but you gotta somewhat, if they're close, stay the course on growing corn, because you're gonna have that rotational benefit, right? So for future years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, I mean, I'm not gonna. That's not a plug for our product, but like, you know, the guys that put manure on, right? There's always like, sometimes we sell our product to a guy that doesn't have, has never seen manure, right? Down south, right? And he's like, wow, it's amazing. And they're like, what is it? I don't know. I was like, it could be organic matter, could be micronutrients, could be anything, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can't get that, you know, as a commercial guy, right? So they ever have a farm close by, they can put manure down or something like that. There's usually a win. Or put a chicken barn up.
Yeah.
Put a cattle barn up, put a big barn up, whatever. Yeah. A lot of times the problem is they can't spread the manure out far enough.
Yep.
You know, can't afford to truck it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. Anything else you want to share for 2024?
No.
Well, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah,
that's the goods for Brian. It's amazing. You know, I love crop consultants, independent crop consultants. I think it's amazing. They have such a network of information, and you also, I understand, you probably get together with other crop consultants, and you have probably a bit of a group.
That's a good benefit. Actually, it was Aaron Breimer that presented at the Lambton Soil and Crop annual meeting. Forget the title of his talk, but it was something to do with, you know, when you don't have enough time for everything on the farm, more or less, don't be scared to hire something out, right? And consultants can fit that role to help a lot of growers take something off their plate, and you get access to their network. Right? So, I'm on bunch of different chat groups and Zoom calls with different consultants, you know, and even I invest a lot of time learning the products. Like you mentioned, you don't maybe know exactly what each product does on the farm with your IP beans, right? And there used to be about 3 big chem companies, and now there's, interestingly, that's actually kind of being more diverse. There's probably about 8-10 chem companies in Ontario. It's not just the big 3 anymore. So it takes more time to learn all the products, the packaging, what changes from year to year. So you got to network with that side of the business, and fertilizer. Every retail may have a different product that they're running with, and so you you really grow your network when you get on with a consultant for
100%,
sure.
100%. You know, and I think we actually moved a lot of our product just recently to a new company, just because, and they didn't even give me any discount because of a bigger farmer than the next farmer. So it's kind of funny. Like a lot of farmers are like, oh, because you got to, get a bigger farmer. No, it's surprising. Like a farmer that's a larger farmer, they get 3%, they get 5%. They're like, wow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, this is unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
So no, that company may actually never get any discounts to myself versus a smaller farmer. And you just bought it online, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of interesting. And you know what? This is the other thing I think farmers don't realize. It's so hard. You don't understand how many things you got to keep track of. You got to be a good marketer, understand herbicides, understand being a mechanic, understand the crop and the field and soil and all these kind of things, right?
Yep.
So yes, of course, if you could give up something that you're not great at, to somebody else that's going to do a better job and make you money in the process, like why not give that up, right?
Yeah.
Try to be good at everything, like. Never gonna happen, right?
No.
So I think it's that, and I always speak of this other events, other talks, is that number one thing: find your strengths, find your weak at, and then and get somebody else to do those places you're weak at, right? So, good. All right. Well, thanks for coming out, Ryan, and we'll probably have you on again sometime.
All right.
You gotta tell me when something's going on in the marketplace, or something's something's bad's happening, or whatever, and we'll bring you back on again.
Enjoyed the chat.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Ryan. Thanks for listening to Dirt Grow Podcast, where every Tuesday we dish out the dirt. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and check out dirtgrow.com for more content and episodes. I'll see you next Tuesday. Ciao.